LCSC students of medieval world history, Professor Eric Martin here, and welcome to week 7. So, part of me wants to keep this video vague so that it's only week 7 so I can get mileage out of it in the future years. But I also think we need to talk a little bit about what's going on with this particular class in terms of what's been going on, class announcements, that kind of thing. Um, so let's just get right into that. And so that would take me to week 5. Just a little background here. Okay, I'm more or less caught up with the grading. I took a look at y'all's initial draft of the annotated research bibliographies, and y'all are going to be, so those were due um, back February 14th, I think, but that week. And some of y'all's research bibliographies looked really good, right? And others of y'all, it was a little scarcer. And I want to talk very briefly about the bibliographies because you've got an update on those bibliographies that is going to be due, I believe that's March 4th. And the thing is that if you've got a really clean draft bibliography, the one you turned in for a grade week 5, you need to polish it, tweak it, add a few things, get rid of the first person, develop those annotations a little bit, clean it up, get the nice citations. Okay. And so if your bibliography was an A or even a B, particularly a high B, you might really be looking at another hour's worth of work to clean that up. However, some of y'all's bibliographies were a little light on the details, right? And so I just wanted to remind you that right here under annotated bibliographies, got a couple of them. One from Megan Garrison, one from Peyton Hansen, one from Amy Cooper. And you fire those things up, if the internet will work, and you get an idea about what the introduction should look like. And yes, the professor gave you an introduction with this first person in it. It's not the end of the world, but try to eliminate it. And then the sources, clean annotations. I know exactly where I can go find that stuff. And the student is giving me an idea about how they're going to use it. So I know I talked about this once before, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with it. But the whole point of the annotated bibliography is so that as you are developing your research paper for this course, as you are developing your formal essay for this class, which is sort of the whole second half of the semester, we're really focused on these things. You've already got a map set out. These are the books I need to be looking at. These are, some of these books will only have a chapter I need to look at. Here's a few articles I need to look at. I am interested in learning. It seems like somebody wanted to do something on Mongol women. There's cool stuff on that. Your bibliography ought to reflect that so that you just kind of know, I'm going here, I'm going there, I'm going there. Because very soon your mission needs to be reading and fine-tuning and not doing sort of the initial setup. Okay? So I graded those. I sent those back to you with some comments. But in general, it had details. I understood almost everybody, I understood what your project was. Some of y'all, the project was a little vague, and I think you need to bring it in a little bit. But a lot of y'all had like a project, but the books in the annotated bibliography didn't really reflect the project, or you didn't have citations so I could understand that, right? And this is going to require some library time. I get it. This is an online class. But not everything is available online. You're not going to be able to do this assignment, a good job with this assignment on your computer. You're going to spend some time at the LC library, at your local library, kind of getting sources together, and you want to get that started now so you have plenty of time to deal with them. Okay, annotated bibliographies. And so just to kind of go back, if I can do it smoothly, we close this and we go to the syllabus. Internet's so slow. Don't sweat the previous annotated bibliography too much. If you didn't get the kind of grade that you wanted to get, focus on getting that update together that's due March 4th. Okay, so that's that. Now, what else do we have to deal with for this week? So that's your polished annotated research bibliography. You're just going to turn those in same way. Also, next week, March 6th, your first book review is due on one of the books that you have been working on for this class. So if you haven't got that started yet, everyone needs to know what book that is, and then you need to be into it. Okay, so it's time. That's sort of the reason why we've only been focusing on, just the one book without a whole lot of extra stuff so far this semester. The idea was that you guys have got a book, you're working on it, you're trying to integrate it to stuff in here, you're kind of figuring out your project. So the review for this first book analysis this ought to look very familiar. It is exactly the way we've had the discussion board set up for the last several chapters of the Hansen book. All right, the author's purpose, the author's sources, how they've got it set up, and their conclusions. All right, so it's not a book report. It's not necessarily telling me what the book is about, although that will be part of that. But it is a book analysis, thinking about the historian who wrote it. Why did they set it up the way they did? All right? Okay. Let's get back to other things. All right, the other stuff we've got going on this week. We are finishing up our discussion about the Hansen book. Now, I know that in this version of your syllabus, it says way up here at the top that you're doing a book analysis on this. You guys have spent a lot of time in the discussion boards. I think I want to count the discussion boards as the book analysis, so that we can not be overwhelmed with a number of different assignments. Now here's the thing with the discussion boards, and I'll just tell you guys this as we get into week 8, or chapter 8, I mean. It's kind of weird. When I go into those discussion boards, and I'll do that right now, maybe just go into something from last week. When I go into these discussion boards, week 5, random week, and I start going through the stuff together It all looks pretty good, with maybe this exception of section 3. We could use a little more in section 3. Sometimes when I read y'all's individual pieces, they seem a little light. But when I go and I read them into the context of everybody else's, they look pretty good. So mission accomplished. Um, See if you can't flesh out section number 3 a little bit. Okay, chapter 8. It's the last section other than, the conclusion. So, chapter 8. Sorry, it's week 8. I've got my weeks and my chapters mixed up. I've got too many of these tabs open. Here we go. Chapter 8, really looking at the Song Dynasty and emphasizing in the chapter. I just give you a little preview. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But emphasizing that the most globalized place on earth is maybe not where you think. It's in China. And going into some detail about what China, roughly the year 1000, looked like. And so the idea is that China's been the most populous region on earth since the year 1000, maybe before. It's got a wider variety of geography than you might think. So pay attention to that, right? Lots of times, China, what we're really talking about are Han Chinese. There's a number of different ethnic groups, but there's a number of different geographical groups that are at play within this thing we call China. So pay attention to that. And the China trade really flourishes during the medieval period, particularly looking at porcelain, at textiles, at perfume, and all this discussion in the chapter, which to me was super interesting, about aromatics, right? And taxation. Just, you don't have to get bogged down in the weeds about their taxation system, but they've got they've got a taxation system because the economy is doing so well. So how does the taxation system work? Where's the money going? All right, and then that gives you some idea about the level of the efficiency of the bureaucracy in terms of the way things are being taxed and how they're being used. And then eventually the taxes change over time. So when does that, three tax system stop, and when does it change to other things? As far as the aromatics, to me it's really cool because you don't really think about the way that you smell as being a status symbol. At least I don't, because I have allergies and don't deal with perfume or cologne at all. But it was a way that people in the Song Dynasty are distinguishing themselves. So it's kind of interesting to see the value of a smell. So looking at early forms of aromatherapy or perfumes, but also thinking about it in foods, using incense on your clothing to make your clothes smell, some kind of medicines. And then also, it talked about using it in warming rooms during the winter. That struck a chord with me because I love to take a sauna. And the when the lavender is in the water and the water goes on to the stove, right? There's just a special smell that happens in there that just says, you're warming up here. So that kind of stuff's pretty interesting. So pay attention to that trade. You're going to get exposed to a number of different elements of the political system. Take note. Try not to get overwhelmed by it, but just pay attention to it. and particularly looking at issues with the Xinjiang Emperor and their administration, the development of Champa rice and what's that mean. So if you have a big population, you must have, productive agriculture. The importance of Taoism, and also the importance of religious flexibility, religious tolerance. There seems to be a lot of that going on. Um, and then the chapter goes into issues about science in the Song Dynasty. Pay attention to agricultural science, art. So we're thinking about calligraphy and literature, painting, trade. We've already talked a little bit about that. Military strength. Um, so it's just kind of an interesting chapter. It's a cool way to end it, right? In the book. And I can imagine a scene where you begin the book with this, that this could have been the first chapter. It's like, wow, you probably never heard of this. This is what's going on here. And then moving into other ways. I mean, so that's one of the things. So let's talk about that for a second. Um, the year 1000, Valerie Hansen has made a choice to present the chapters in a particular order. If she had started with Song China and then come up with a different order, and so you can just play the game, what would the order be? How would that affect the book? Like, how would that affect the way the book comes across? I don't know. I suspect I'd be getting more, research papers focused on China than I am the Vikings, because lots of times we get influenced by the first thing we read, right? But you got to start somewhere. So anyway, that's what I mean when I was talking about earlier with the book analysis, thinking about how the author is presenting history. She's presenting these 8 chapters, and she could have put them in all kinds of order. Why this order? How would it have changed if she'd done it in a different order? And that's a good discussion to have in the epilogue. So on the one hand, it's how do you like the book? But on the other hand, let's just practice some of our book analysis skills along the lines of, do you think the way she put it together worked? What if she'd put it together a different way? All right. So that's what we've got for week 7. I'm just going to go ahead and move on to talk about week 8 and week 9 right now, because I don't know how much there is to talk about it. Week 8, we've already talked about. Your polished annotated research bibliography should be together, and your first research book analysis should be together on a book of your choice. All right? And then for week 9, I've not heard from anyone saying that you guys were not able to get a hold of this Middle Ages book. I'm glad. So we're just moving forward. March, I got to do the math, 14th, I believe it will be. The Middle Ages, the graphic history will be due. By the time you guys are ready for it, I'll have some discussions up here to where we'll just talk about how she's laid the book out. It's 176 pages. It is 176 fast pages. Okay, you can read this in, 1 or 2 evenings. It's a graphic novel, kind of gives you a layout of the timeline of Europe. I think it's cool for that particular reason. So I'll come up with some discussion, but mostly the discussion is going to be getting us ready for this part. Okay, and then as we move into week 10, I'll just do it like this. I'm not exactly sure we're going to get to this point and have some reevaluations. Week 10, we'll probably just start working with this. We'll start working with doing some sketches of sort of what our formal essay outline is going to look like. And then I want to think about how we're doing stuff after spring break. But basically after spring break, it's all focused on, shifting towards you guys doing your work. We'll have some video presentations. We'll have some discussions. You'll write a paper, and we'll declare victory. Now, despite the fact that I don't always um, send out announcements when I'm holding Zoom office hours, I'm on Zoom a lot. If I am working on my computer on work stuff, I fire Zoom up. It's just like if I was, working in my office. It wasn't my official office hours. You happen to come by, knock. If I'm there, I'll answer. But the point is this: I haven't seen a whole lot of folks lately. I've seen a couple of you guys a few times. So I assume you have it under control and all is well. All right. If that's not the case, don't panic. All right. There's a lot of semester left, but if you've got some concerns, if you're not exactly sure what you want to do with the project, if you're struggling with it, more than you thought you would, let's make an appointment soon. Pop into my office hours, and almost always Monday and Friday mornings I'm on Zoom. I'm on campus a lot on Wednesday mornings. I'm on campus other times, but I've got other schedules going on. The point is this: I'm around. If you guys need me, pop in. If that doesn't work out, send me an email. We'll work out some sort of an appointment. I want you guys to be successful with this. And the second half of the semester, I think is going to be really cool. I think it's going to be really cool taking this book, figuring out what it is that's the most interesting, roughly the year 1000 to you, and doing a slightly more detailed examination of that, and learning what you want to learn about the medieval period. And in the process, we'll have a few more videos and things like that to kind of keep things interesting. All right, let me know if you got any questions. Enjoy studying history.